Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we'll be doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which sees the brand new release of Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, which is getting decent reviews early on from critics, but it is projected to have, let's just say, a less than ideal opening weekend, especially when you compare it to its overall budget. And when you start to talk about the potential, at the very least, for John Wick Chapter 4 second weekend to potentially come back in at the number one spot, or at the very least, the difference between these two and their projections being enough to where, hey, it is at least a possibility, definitely, I think, spells some danger for the Dungeons & Dragons film. There's also a new release of a film called His Only Son, which I've seen a little bit of the trailer of, and personally not all that interested in it. It deals with a biblical story, but you all know my thoughts typically about biblical stories in most media and in most films and adaptations. I tend not to be drawn to them for the most part, but we're going to be focusing mostly on Dungeons & Dragons. Before any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, light that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and smash the rumble button as well. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with the bell notification on that way you know time the video or live stream goes live on the channel. So Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, according to Box Office Pro, which we always take with a grain of salt because their projections are not based off of what the studio reports, what they think the film is going to make. They typically have their own metrics, which take into account social media presence and social media interactions and likes and views and all those kinds of things into their equations. But they're projecting the film to make a $35 million domestic opening weekend. Now, that might seem like, hey, well, it's being John Wick John Wick Chapter 4's second weekend, but this film costs $151 million to make, meaning, if we go over to my box office charts, that the film needs to break even, or is going to break even, around $377.5 million, and that's probably at a minimum. Again, there's different metrics for determining the break-even point. I use a 2.5 times production budget, as that's usually done well for me in the past, though there are some who are in today's dollars and in today's terms using a 3 times multiplier. Either way, this film is needing to make somewhere between $355 and probably close to $500 million just to break even. And when you're opening to $30 million in the States, that is definitely not a good start, especially with the fact that you have John Wick Chapter 4, which is just continuing to do very, very well, especially in its daily performance. But also you have next weekend, right? As we have next week is Holy Week, blessed Passion Week to everyone out there who is celebrating Passion Week this week, with Holy Week being next week. We have Mario, the Super Mario Brothers film, coming out next week during Easter. And so you have not only that film, but also other films set to come out. So that means that this movie has a very small frame, a very small window to be able to actually get butts into seats in to see this film and to put priorities over, on this film versus others. Now, some have said, well, maybe this film will have some positive word of mouth, some early reactions from critics and some other people that people generally trust, who are either a part of the critics circle but more trustworthy, or more general everyday people have said that the film's actually a lot more fun than it has any right to be. What I can say is that the trailer does not make it enticing, at least to me, whatsoever. If you actually look over at Metacritic right now, there's 33 reviews in on Metacritic, and the average score is around a 71, which tells me, or at least seems to indicate to me, okay, it seems like a generically fun action film based off of that metric. Again, this is a movie that has multiple directors, for one, and I am always a little bit more hesitant when there is more than one director. It has worked before, right? Everything Era All at Once had the Daniels directing them. This one seems to have the Johns or the Jonathans, or I don't know if they're going by any funny titles like like the Daniels would be. But this film right now has 28 positive reviews, 3 mixed, and 2 negative reviews. And so without user reviews, though, I am not going to be able to really, take a complete assessment of everything going on. This film definitely does have a lot of things going on for it as far as its casting is concerned. Hugh Grant's in the movie, which always gets my attention because he has just been really hilarious in a lot of the last, several films that he has done. But then you also have people like Michelle Rodriguez in the movie, and I just do not really care at all for Michelle Rodriguez. I didn't care and don't care for her in the Fast and Furious franchise, and I just don't care for her in most of the films that she does in general. Also, of course, Chris Pine is in the movie too. And based on the trailer, which again shows Chris Pine just, goofing off a little bit as girl boss Michelle Rodriguez does all the fighting. Again, that very well might just be the trailer, and the film might actually be a little bit more than that, which would be nice. but it definitely is not a strong indicator, at least for me, having any general interest. Maybe I'll go see it tonight. Maybe I won't. Again, I don't really have a desire to go see it, and so that's kind of where I stand on the movie. But $35 million is just not a very strong opening for a film that needs to make, again, probably around $400 at least million worldwide to break even. Maybe this film does much better internationally than it does domestically, but based off of the domestic numbers alone, it's not looking very good for the film. John Wick Chapter 4, on the other hand, is looking to have a very strong second weekend, dropping only 59%. Making another $30.6 million. And as I said, a lot of the drop of this movie is probably going to be because it's losing those IMAX premium format screens. Dungeons & Dragons from Paramount is going to be getting many of those, if not all of them. And so that's probably why you're going to see a pretty decent drop. Again, most big budget films do have drops well over 50% in general, unless they are a film like Top Gun Maverick, for instance, which is able to have historic levels of growth even after their opening weekend. But this film is still, again, projected to do pretty well at $124.9 million domestically projected for this film after this weekend. I would say that would put this film probably close to the $300 million mark, and if it is going to be close to the $300 mark, then that means that it's going to be likely either making its break-even point this weekend or getting very close to hitting its break-even point after its second week of release. So kudos to Lionsgate and to the John Wick team for making a film not only that's a lot of fun, that not only does a lot of really great fan service and also pays tribute to, obviously the source material of the franchise as it continues to unfold, but also as it is, again, just an awesome film that everyone should try to go and see. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not it does drop 59% or not. Again, when it comes to Box Office Pro, sometimes they overestimate, sometimes they underestimate. So whether or not John Wick Chapter 4 is able to beat Dungeons & Dragons is still something that remains to be seen. We'll have to, of course, wait until we get some Thursday numbers, do some comparisons, and then also be able to get a better understanding of where those films will end up. Creed 3 is continuing to hang around as well, with only a 35% drop projected, another $5.3 million, so continuing to be a success. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, again, continues to be a massive disappointment. It will creep up to $54 million after now going into its, fourth week of release. When you just compare that to some of these other movies, it's just really bad. Dungeons & Dragons, again, has a decent chance of beating it. The fact that it's projected to make more than what Shazam 2 made kind of, I think, should indicate why this film is such an utter and abysmal failure for Warner Brothers. Scream 6 is projected to make another $4.7 million, almost getting it to $100 million. So this film will absolutely hit $100 million when everything is said and done. His Only Son from Angel Studios. This deals with the sacrifice of Isaac. So it deals with the story of Abraham and Isaac and the accounting of the sacrifice that is asked for by God. So again, something that is definitely intriguing, especially from biblical history. However, again, based off the fact it's the same studio that brought you The Chosen, it's just not my thing. But $2.7 million at 1,900 screens is actually still very impressive in a per theater ratio for a movie that is mostly going to appeal to only a certain type and demographic. The movie 65 is going to continue to drop out of theaters. $1.9 million projected for this movie, so not looking all that great. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania continues to be a box office flop with $1.5 million. Jesus Revolution continues to hang around, doing well with $1.2 million. And Cocaine Bear, which broke even last weekend, was able to get to $1.1 million addition to its overall domestic numbers. So again, pretty strong numbers, strongholds overall for a lot of these movies. But of course, the big story is Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves. Are you going to see the film? Do you have any interest in it whatsoever? Either way, I think that the opening of the film, unless it has great word of mouth, unless it ends up being a really good, fun movie, and based off of these early reviews, it's a little too hard to tell at this point in time, though I did find it hilarious that one of the negative reviews from the San Francisco Chronicle described it in this way, saying that D&D Honor Amongst Thieves feels like Dalian Goldstein, who also co-wrote with Michael Gillio, asked ChatGPT to artificial intelligence chatbot developed by OpenAI, write a Marvel movie except with Dungeons & Dragons characters. Seconds later, this spit out. I don't know. I just found that to be quite entertaining. Not to say that there's any weight to that review whatsoever, but hey, in the era of AI that we are in, to say that the script seems to come across as a ChatGPT basically spinoff, yeah, definitely does not come across in a strong way. And these numbers seem to indicate that it probably won't have a strong release either. But we, of course, need to wait for those international numbers, and this film probably has a better chance of doing that much better internationally. So we'll of course track that, and we'll track its second weekend numbers with the Easter weekend. But with films like Super Mario Bros. Set to come out next weekend, do you think that Dungeons & Dragons is going to end up being a box office success or a box office failure? Right now, it's seeming to lean towards failure. Also, what do you all thought about John Wick Chapter 4? Do you think it's going to hit its $300 million worldwide number this weekend? weekend. Again, it's going to have kind of a similar issue with Easter, having a lot more competition going into that weekend, but it is also still doing quite well. And with numbers like this, it seems to indicate that by next weekend, it will have not only made its break even or gotten close to it, but even if it hasn't gotten to it, be in a good position to be able to do so, at least by the end of Easter. So what else thoughts about this? Let me know let me know your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, slap that fire button, Aussie, and smash the rumble button. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your Passion Week this weekend. Of course, this Sunday being Palm Sunday, so a blessed Palm Sunday. And a blessed Holy Week next week as well. You guys are all amazing. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my March Patreon, Subscribe Star, and local members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above. Starting off with Father Luca Illich, Garrett Searles, Chris from the 80s, who can check out over his YouTube channel by the same name, Jaimir Irie Hymason, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Orange at Reviews, who can check out over at his YouTube channel, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Rosetta Allen, who can check out at her YouTube channel, Eagle Writer, Miss Martin Muses, and you can check her out at her YouTube channel by the same name also. To my Subscribe Star members, Matt317, you can check out over at his Twitch channel, Matt317, Fast Reaction, The R, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, The Beer Guru, and The K-Man, who you can find out over at xtheboundaries.co. And lastly, to my locals members, Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, J.H. Schwalbach, Brett D90, and the amazing lawyer, Robert Barnes. Thank you all very much for supporting me at the Patreon level, Subscribe Star level, and locals level of Keeper the Bifrost and above. If you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and every video, make sure to check out the top link in the video description to find out more ways that you can support the channel, including ways to get access to a podcast and also ways to get access to giveaways that I do on the channel, and also, of course, to my coveted Chosen of Valhalla level as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.